What are presidential emergency powers? Top 7 surprising things the president can do. We all know that the government is divided into 3 independent branches to protect citizens' rights and freedoms, and to avoid any abuse of power from any one individual branch. They all have specific powers and are supposed to work together for the greater good of the American people, keeping each other in check. It is precisely these limits on the power vested in the Oval Office that help us avoid ending up with an authoritarian ruler in the White House who can do whatever they want, whenever they want, and without answering to anyone. But did you know that practically at their leisure, the presidents can declare a state of national emergency that grants them powers to bypass most restraints and do things that would otherwise be illegal? It's true. There are 123 presidential emergency powers that allow a US president the most unheard of actions, and in today's video, we'll show you the top 7 most surprising ones that will blow your mind. But before we begin, give us a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notifications bell for 7 years of good luck. So what are presidential emergency powers and why do they exist? The name is a bit of a giveaway, but it basically boils down to a special set of powers not vested on the president under normal circumstances, but that they acquire if and when they decide to declare a state of national emergency. Now, this emergency could be anything from the threat of war, civil unrest, an economic turmoil, or even a natural disaster. These powers are intended to help the president act quickly and opportunely when the situation requires it, bypassing many time-consuming procedures like asking Congress for permission. So, presidential emergency powers are necessary, but there is a serious problem. The president can declare a state of national emergency practically on a whim, because the laws don't specify what an emergency is, so practically any excuse is good enough to declare one. And when they do, the presidency all of a sudden amasses an unhealthy amount of power that threatens the very foundations of our democracy. How to keep these powers in check. In 1976, the National Emergency Act, passed by the Congress, tried to put a leash on the declaration of states of emergency. These controls included 1. Limiting the duration of the state of emergency to 1 year, after which the president would need to request an extension if need be. 2. Reporting beforehand which emergency powers the president intends to use. 3. Give updates on the progress and effectiveness of the use of those powers. 4. Congress would meet every 6 months to vote on whether the state of emergency should or should not be maintained. The funny thing is that before 1976, there were less than 10 active states of national emergencies. But after the law came into effect, the number of emergencies increased over 10-fold instead of decreasing. And today, we have several dozen states of emergencies that are renewed year after year with no end in sight. This basically means that we're at the mercy of the president's better judgment regarding which powers he decides to use and to what ends, since they can be easily abused. Keep watching to find out which are the 7 most dangerous superpowers US presidents can enact in the name of democracy, freedom, and national interest. Number 7. Allow testing of biological and chemical weapons on unwitting human subjects. It sounds crazy, but there are situations in which the president can let scientists go crazy experimenting on humans if there is a life-threatening event, like a pandemic, that desperately needs a cure or a vaccine. Sound familiar? This is absolutely against morals, laws, the Constitution, and common sense. But hey, it's an emergency, right? But there's a much darker side to this than speeding up a vaccine, since, in theory, this could let the president authorize illegal testing of bioweapons or chemical weapons on humans, not unlike what the Nazis did under Hitler. And did you know that countries like China, Russia, and a few others in the Middle East have experimented bio and chemical weapons on people for countless decades and even today? Should the US be any different when dealing with other ruthless regimes if it's better for our country? While those goosebumps on your arm subside, take a second to subscribe Now keep watching to see what's coming next. Number 6. Turn the military against U.S. citizens on U.S. soil. The Insurrection Act allows the president to use the army as an internal police to stop any insurrection, domestic violence, unlawful combinations, or conspiracies that somehow obstruct the execution of the law. The problem is that those terms aren't defined in the Insurrection Act and are basically left to the interpretation of the president in office. It can be used for a good cause, like when President Eisenhower used it to enforce desegregation in schools, but it's very easy to interpret the law in a way that it could be used to suppress political protesters who are in perfect practice of their rights to free speech, etc. Number 5. Freeze U.S. bank accounts. Presidents use some of their emergency powers to enforce economic sanctions against countries they don't like and their supporters. Some of these measures include freezing all bank accounts and assets belonging or related to terrorists, dictatorships, drug and human traffickers, etc. The decision is completely unilateral on behalf of the president, and there's little to nothing those affected can do about it, even if they are presumed innocent. Number 4. Restrict travel. Yes, the president can decide to ground air traffic, close or open state and national borders, and also control when and who can travel and where Americans can travel to. September 11th and recent pandemic's mandatory lockdown ring a bell? Number 3. Institute martial law. When all hell breaks loose during a war or the invasion of our territory, the president can declare martial law, so that the military takes control of all civil functions and even suspends civil law, which means that we would all be under military law. As anyone who ever watched A Few Good Men can attest, we can only hope that this never comes to be. Number 2. Sanction or detain U.S. citizens without cause. After 9/11, George W. Bush, under Executive Order 13224 and the Patriot Act, instated the power to breach our privacy, tap our phones, search our property, and even imprison us, all without a warrant, and based only on the mere suspicion of terrorism. Once on that blacklist, it's illegal for anyone in the States to give you a job. You won't be able to rent a place to stay, get medical care if you need it, or even buy food. It's even worse than being an illegal alien, and practically the only choice left to you is to leave the country, all because of simple suspicion and without the need for any real evidence. The Patriot Act is also the excuse President Bush used to justify illegal detentions and torture of American citizens after 9/11. With this precedent, who knows what the future holds for us all, especially after seeing number 1 coming up next on our list. Number 1. Take over telecommunications and the internet. What originally started out as a law that would allow the president to close radio stations and take control of wire communication facilities 100 years ago is now being reinterpreted to allow control over cell phone networks and the internet. The president could restrict access to certain websites, close those that oppose the national benefits, force Google and other tech companies that run search engines to show only certain websites, intercept and/or block emails of friends or foes. In short, a president could turn the US into China, or perhaps that's just what's needed to deal with China or other adversaries when all soft diplomacy failed and our national interest is at stake. There are hundreds of other emergency laws that grant special powers to the president, though most of them have never been used. The most powerful part is that when declaring a state of national emergency and specifying which powers he intends to use, he doesn't need to select only the powers directly related to the emergency. Do you think that the presidential emergency powers are dangerous and should be better regulated? Which of the powers on our list disturbed you the most? Leave us a comment and join the discussion. And remember to subscribe, hit the like, and ring that notification bell for more videos.